Part 1. The research station hung in the darkness between dimensions, a silver sphere that existed in 5 realities at once. Inside, Doctor adjusted her observation equipment with 3 of her 6 arms while the other 3 typed notes into her. She was a species known throughout the consortium for their careful, methodical approach to science. Her skin shifted colors with her mood, currently a calm blue that indicated focused concentration. "The files make no sense," said Quill from across the laboratory. The scientist was tall and thin, with large eyes that could see in spectrums most beings couldn't imagine. His people were the consortium's experts in logic and probability. If something could be calculated, a could do it. "I have run the models 47 times. The results are always the same. These humans should be dead." Doctor moved to his station and looked at the screen. The first case file showed a human woman named Sarah, 3 days trapped in a collapsed mine. A punctured lung, temperatures near freezing, no water. The probability models were clear. Sarah should have died within 6 hours. The oxygen deprivation alone should have caused her brain to shut down. Instead, she had crawled through spaces barely wide enough for her body, pushed aside rocks that weighed more than she did, and emerged alive. "Show me the neural scans," Doctor said. Quill brought up the brain imaging data that human doctors had recorded after Sarah's rescue. Doctor had studied the brains of 400 different species. She knew what survival stress looked like in neural patterns, but this was different. "Look at the prefrontal cortex," Quill pointed at the image. "It nearly shut down. This is the part that handles logic, planning, and rational thought. In any other species, this would mean the being has accepted death. The brain conserves its remaining energy. Death comes peacefully." "But not for humans," Doctor said softly. "No, look at these areas here." Quill highlighted different sections of the brain scan. The amygdala, the hypothalamus, the brainstem, what humans call their lizard brain. These regions showed activity we have never recorded in any species. It's as if when the logical brain turned off, something else turned on, something older. Doctor felt her skin shift to purple, the color for unease. She opened the next file. A human male who had been attacked by a creature called a grizzly bear. These animals could weigh 300 kilograms and had claws like knives, had a broken arm. The consortium's terror response models said he should have gone into shock and died quickly. Instead had fought. With one arm useless, he had punched the bear in its nose, kicked it, even bitten it. The fight had lasted 4 minutes. 4 minutes of a small, injured human fighting a massive predator. The bear had eventually retreated, survived. "I spoke with a philosopher about this," Quill said. His voice was troubled. "She said that when death is certain, the logical response is acceptance. Fighting against the inevitable wastes energy and increases suffering. Every intelligent species learns this. It's why we have peaceful deaths. We understand when the universe has made its choice." "But humans don't accept it," Doctor said. "They can't," Quill replied. "Or they won't. I'm not sure which is more disturbing." The door to the laboratory slid open. Research assistant entered, carrying a portable holo display. Was a species that looked almost like living water held in a translucent membrane. They were excellent at pattern recognition, seeing connections that others missed. "I compiled all the human survival cases from the past 10 years, said. Their voice bubbled like a stream. 5,214 cases where humans survived scenarios that our models said were impossible. I found the pattern." The holo display activated, showing a chart that made Doctor's skin flash orange with surprise. "The more certainly they should die, the more likely they are to survive." "Exactly," said. "It makes no sense, but the data is clear. When humans face minor dangers, they respond logically. They calculate, they plan, they sometimes even accept defeat. But when death becomes certain, when there is no logical path to survival, something changes. Their brains stop working normally, and they survive anyway." Doctor walked to the large observation window. Beyond it, the planet Earth turned slowly, blue and white and green. Such a beautiful world, such a strange species. We need a human here, she said. We need to observe this ourselves. Contact Earth's scientific liaison. Tell them we want to conduct a study on human survival responses. Offer them full access to our research. Offer them whatever they want. What exactly are we studying? Quill asked. Doctor's skin rippled through several colors before settling on a deep red, the color of determination. We're studying what happens when logic dies and something else takes control. 3 days later, Lieutenant James arrived at the station. He was a human soldier, 32 years old, with dark hair and eyes that had seen things they wished they hadn't. Doctor greeted him in the docking bay. "Lieutenant, thank you for coming," she said through the translation device that hung in the air between them. "I know this is unusual." James looked around the station with obvious interest. "Ma'am, I've been in space for 6 months. Nothing seems unusual anymore. Your message said you wanted to talk about what happened on station." "Yes, if you're comfortable discussing it." They walked through the station's corridors. Other researchers stopped to stare at the human. Humans were new to the galactic community, having only achieved faster-than-light travel 15 years ago. They were still exotic, still unknown. In the interview room, James sat in a chair that adjusted itself to his body. Doctor dimmed the lights to a level comfortable for human eyes. Quill and watched from an observation booth, recording everything. "Tell me what happened," Doctor said gently. James was quiet for a moment. "We were on a routine patrol. Station is a mining outpost, nothing special. Then the showed up. They're these things like spiders but bigger, much bigger, and they're smart. They cut the power, vented half the station's air. My squad was in the residential section when it happened. The report says 20 soldiers went into that section. Only you came out." "Yes, ma'am." James's hands gripped the armrests of his chair. "They were everywhere. We fought, but they kept coming. One by one, my people went down. Martinez, Jackson, Davis, all of them. I was the last one left. No ammo, no air supply, no way out." "What did you do?" "I ran." James laughed, but there was no humor in it. "I ran like hell. Through the maintenance tunnels, through the ventilation system, places I didn't even know existed. I could hear them behind me, clicking and hissing. Every time I thought I was done, I'd find another tunnel, another door. I don't even remember most of it. It's like watching a movie of someone else." Doctor leaned forward. "You don't remember your own actions." "I remember feelings, terror, rage. This weird kind of stubbornness, like I was angry at the universe for trying to kill me. But the actual decisions, the actual movements, it's blurry. I just know I kept moving, couldn't stop, wouldn't stop." Quill's voice came through the speaker. "Lieutenant, did you calculate your chances of survival?" James looked up at the observation booth. "Sir, I'm not a math guy, but I knew I was going to die, I knew it. But I couldn't make myself stop trying. Does that make sense?" Doctor showed him a holographic display of his own body during the incident. Human military armor recorded all vital signs. "Look at this. Your heart rate was 210 beats per minute. Your cortisol levels were 4 times normal. Your blood pressure should have caused a stroke, but look at your brain activity." The display showed James's brain in cross-section, with different regions highlighted in different colors. His prefrontal cortex was almost dark, but the deeper, older parts of his brain were blazing with activity. "Your logical mind almost stopped working," Doctor explained. "But these older parts of your brain took over. We call it the override. When you should have accepted death, something in your brain refused. It pushed your body beyond what should be possible." James stared at the image of his own brain. "So I survived because I was too stupid to know I should die." "No," Doctor said. Her skin turned a soft gold, the color of wonder. "You survived because some part of you is older than logic, older than reason, a part that simply refuses to stop, no matter what the universe tells it." "Is that a good thing or a bad thing?" Doctor didn't answer. She didn't know yet. But looking at this young human who had survived the impossible, she felt something she rarely experienced. She felt afraid. Because if humans could override their own logic, their own reason, their own understanding of reality, what else could they override? What else could they refuse to accept? Quill's voice came through the speaker again, quieter this time. Doctor, I've finished analyzing the probability matrices for human survival scenarios. The results are disturbing. How disturbing? If we ever go to war with humanity, the numbers say we would win. Our technology is better. Our strategy is superior. Our logic is flawless. But the same numbers say humans wouldn't stop. They would keep fighting long after defeat was certain. They would refuse to surrender even when surrender was the only logical choice. They would fight until they were extinct. In the interview room, James was looking at his hands, perhaps wondering what they had done that he couldn't remember. Doctor watched him and understood what Quill was saying. Humans were dangerous not because they were strong. They were dangerous because they couldn't accept when they were beaten, and that made them the most terrifying species the consortium had ever encountered. Part 2. Doctor spent 3 days designing the experiments. The consortium had strict ethical guidelines about testing on sentient beings, and she followed them carefully. Nothing she planned would cause permanent harm. Nothing would leave lasting trauma. The humans would experience fear, yes, but controlled fear. Virtual fear. Fear that ended the moment they removed the neural interface helmet. The volunteers have arrived, announced, their watery form rippling with excitement. 12 humans, all different backgrounds. Soldiers, scientists, teachers, even an artist. Earth's liaison said we should study a variety to understand the pattern. The first volunteer was David, a 38-year-old engineer from a city called Seoul. He sat in the testing chair while Doctor explained the procedure. The neural interface helmet would connect directly to his brain and create a perfectly realistic simulation. His body would remain safe in the chair, but his mind would experience everything as if it were real. "What kind of scenario?" David asked, speaking through his own translation device. "Drowning," Doctor said. "You'll be underwater with a limited air supply. The simulation will make you feel like you're truly running out of oxygen. When you panic or when the air runs out completely, we'll end it. The whole experience will last no more than 5 minutes." David nodded. "I'm ready." Quill monitored the neural readings from the observation booth. Doctor activated the simulation. On the screens, they could see what David saw: dark water, a metal corridor filled to the ceiling, a small pocket of air growing smaller. His oxygen gauge showed 2 minutes remaining. David's real body was breathing normally, safe in the chair, but his brain didn't know that. His heart rate climbed. His pupils dilated. The prefrontal cortex began to quiet. 1 minute of air remaining in the simulation, Doctor said softly. David tried the door in front of him. Locked. He turned and swam back the way he came, also locked. He tried to break the door with his shoulder. He looked for tools, for weapons, for anything. 40 seconds of air. His movements became frantic. He punched the door. He kicked it. He tried to pry it open with his bare hands. "His logic center is almost completely dark," Quill reported. "But look at the amygdala. Look at the motor cortex. He's generating solutions faster than I can count them." 20 seconds of air. David tried the door again, then swam to a vent in the ceiling, too small. He tried anyway, pushing his head and shoulders into the opening. Wouldn't fit. He swam back down, tried a different vent, also too small. 10 seconds. He tried the first vent again, pushing harder, trying to make his body compress. "He's trying the same solutions multiple times," observed. "That's not logical. He should remember they didn't work." "He's not thinking," Doctor said. "He's just trying everything, anything." 5 seconds. David tried to break the door again. 2 seconds. He tried the vent again. 1 second. He was still moving, still trying, when the air gauge hit 0 and Doctor ended the simulation. David gasped and pulled off the helmet. He was shaking, covered in sweat, even though his body had never left the chair. "Did I make it?" "In a sense, yes," Doctor said. "David, we ran probability calculations on your actions. If that scenario were real, you should have drowned in the first 30 seconds. The most logical thing to do was conserve your oxygen by staying calm and trying only the most likely escape routes." "How did I survive then?" "You didn't conserve oxygen. You tried 17 different solutions, some of them contradictory, some physically harmful. You wasted energy and air. But according to our analysis, 3 of your attempts were so unlikely that our models hadn't considered them. One of those would have worked. You survived because you tried everything, including things that made no logical sense." David looked at his hands. They were trembling. "I wasn't thinking about logic, I couldn't stop moving. Like if I stopped trying, even for a second, I'd die." Over the next week, Doctor tested all 12 volunteers. A teacher named was trapped in a burning building. A soldier named Carlos faced a hostile alien in a corridor. An artist named was buried in a collapsed structure. Each scenario was designed to trigger maximum fear while remaining safely virtual. The results were always the same. When humans faced certain death, their logical minds dimmed. Something else took over. They fought, struggled, tried impossible solutions. Their bodies flooded with chemicals that would kill most species but pushed humans to superhuman efforts. They survived things they shouldn't survive. Dr. Hayes was different from the other volunteers. She was 56 years old, a psychologist who had survived a building collapse in a city called San Francisco. Unlike the others, she had requested to participate. She wanted to understand what had happened to her. "I was on the 4th floor when the earthquake hit," told Doctor before the test. "The building came down. My right leg was pinned under a concrete beam. I was alone. I knew no one was coming. I could feel my leg dying, the blood flow cut off. I knew I had maybe an hour before shock killed me." "What did you do?" His voice was steady, but her eyes were distant. "I broke my own leg, snapped the bone so I could pull it free. I used my jacket as a tourniquet. Then I crawled through the rubble for 6 hours until I found a pocket where rescue workers could hear me screaming." "Do you remember deciding to break your leg?" "No, I just remember knowing it had to happen. It was like watching someone else do it. Someone who wasn't afraid, someone who was angry." For his test, Doctor recreated the earthquake scenario as accurately as possible. The neural interface was so advanced that his brain couldn't tell the difference between simulation and memory. On the screens, the research team watched his neural activity as the simulated building collapsed around her. The prefrontal cortex went dark almost immediately, but the deeper brain structures blazed like stars. Simulated body was trapped, leg pinned, just like before. The research team expected her to break the leg quickly, to follow the pattern she'd established in real life. Instead, tried 23 different solutions first. She tried to lift the beam. She tried to dig under it. She tried to break the concrete with her hands. She tried to twist her leg free at angles that would cause permanent damage. Only when every other option was exhausted did she break the bone. "Why did she try so many other options?" asked. "She knew what worked, she'd done it before." Doctor understood. Because every part of her wanted to avoid that pain. Her conscious mind knew what to do, but her survival instinct tried everything else first. The override isn't just about surviving. It's about refusing to accept the cost of survival until there's absolutely no other choice. After the simulation ended, sat quietly for a long time. "It was exactly like before," she finally said. "The not thinking, the anger, this feeling of no, not like this, I won't die like this. Like something in me was insulted by the idea of dying." Insulted, Doctor's skin flashed purple with confusion. "I can't explain it better than that. It wasn't fear of death. It was rage at death. Like death was trying to tell me what to do, and I refused to listen. Doctor recorded everything said. That night she couldn't sleep, though needed very little sleep anyway. She kept thinking about's words. Rage at death. Refusal to be told what to do. Was that what the override really was? She called a meeting with her research team. Quill and 4 other scientists gathered in the conference room. Doctor displayed all their data on the holographic screens. "We've been thinking about this wrong," she said. "We called it a survival instinct, but look at the data. Humans don't survive because they want to live. They survive because they refuse to die. It's not the same thing." Quill's large eyes blinked slowly. "I don't understand the distinction." "Wanting to live means you calculate the best path to survival and take it. Refusing to die means you try every path, logical or not, until something works or you're dead. The first is efficient. The second is desperate. Humans are desperate by default when death appears." Sform rippled thoughtfully. "But that's so wasteful. Most species accept death when it becomes inevitable. It's more peaceful, less painful." "Yes," Doctor agreed. "But humans didn't evolve for peace or efficiency. Look at Earth's history. Ice ages, supervolcano eruptions, diseases that killed millions. Humans survived all of it, not because they were the strongest or fastest. They survived because when extinction came for them, they were too stubborn to accept it." One of the other researchers, a crystalline being named Shard, spoke up. "This has implications beyond academic interest. If humans can't accept defeat logically, what happens if they ever face a threat they truly can't overcome?" The room went quiet. Doctor knew what Shard was really asking. What happens when an unstoppable force meets a being that refuses to be stopped? "We need one more test," Doctor said. "We need to see what happens when we put a human in a scenario where surrender is the only logical option. Not just likely death, but certain death. Death that should break the override itself." Quill's skin turned gray with concern. His species only turned gray when they were truly afraid. "Doctor, that could be psychologically damaging. The ethics committee would never approve." "Then we'll simulate something they've never faced before. Something so far beyond human experience that their training, their instincts, even their stubbornness should fail." Doctor pulled up a classified file. "I'm going to show them the dread." His entire body froze, something that only happened when it was terrified. "That's not funny." "I'm not joking. We have detailed records from the 6 species that encountered the dread before they went extinct. We can simulate the experience. The fear it generates is psychic, dimensional. It breaks minds. Every species that faced it chose to shut down their consciousness rather than endure the terror, peaceful death rather than suffering." "And you want to expose a human to this?" Quill asked. "In a controlled simulation, yes. I need to know if the override can be broken. I need to know if there's a level of fear that makes even humans accept death." Shard chimed softly, a sound like breaking glass. "And if the override can't be broken, if humans refuse to surrender even to the dread." Doctor's skin cycled through every color in the emotional spectrum before settling on deep red. "Then we'll know that humans are more dangerous than we ever imagined, because a species that can't accept death will never stop coming, never stop fighting, never stop trying." "Even when trying is futile," Quill said softly. "Especially when trying is futile," Doctor corrected. "That's what makes them terrifying." Part 3. Maya Santos was a crisis counselor from a city called Phoenix. She was 41 years old, calm and professional, trained to help people through their worst moments. When Doctor explained the test, Maya listened carefully. "This simulation will be different from the others," Doctor said. "The entity you'll face isn't physical. It's called the dread. It exists partially outside normal space. It feeds on fear itself. 6 intelligent species encountered it before we learned to avoid its dimensional territory. All 6 went extinct." "How did they die?" Maya asked. They didn't exactly. When faced with the dread, every recorded being experienced immediate psychic paralysis. The terror was so complete that their minds chose to shut down rather than endure it. They died peacefully, unconscious. It was the logical response to a threat that couldn't be fought. Maya nodded slowly. And you want to see if I'll do the same thing. We want to understand the limits of human survival response. If there's a point where even the override fails. You're asking if there's something so scary that we give up. Yes. Maya was quiet for a long moment. I've talked people off bridges. I've held the hands of dying patients. I've sat with parents who just lost their children. I know fear. I know despair. But I've never given up on someone, never told someone it was okay to stop fighting. So let's see what your monster can do. Doctor felt her skin flash orange with worry. Maya, this isn't bravery we're testing. The dread breaks minds. Even in simulation, the experience could be traumatic. I understand. Let's do it anyway. The neural interface helmet settled over Maya's head. Doctor checked all the readings twice. In the observation booth, Quill and watched nervously. 3 other senior researchers had joined them, including Shard, who had studied the dread for decades. Remember, Shard said, his crystalline voice tight with tension, every species that faced the dread chose shutdown within seconds. Their logic centers recognized an unwinnable scenario and opted for peaceful death. If Maya's brain does the same, that's normal. That's healthy. The override failing doesn't mean humans are weak. It means they're sane. Doctor activated the simulation. Maya's neural readings appeared on the screens. Baseline calm, heart rate 72, brain activity normal. Then the dread manifested. The observation booth's monitors couldn't fully capture what Maya was experiencing. The dread existed in dimensions they couldn't display, but they could see Maya's body respond. Her heart rate spiked to 160. Her pupils dilated until her eyes were almost entirely black. Every muscle tensed. Look at the prefrontal cortex, Quill whispered. It's dimming. The logical part of Maya's brain was shutting down, just like every other species. The override was beginning, but something else was happening too. The amygdala, the fear center, was blazing with activity. But instead of paralysis, Maya's motor cortex was also activating. In the simulation, Maya did something impossible. She spoke. No, her voice was shaking but clear. No, you don't get to do this. The dread intensified. According to the records, this was when complete paralysis should occur. Maya's heart rate hit 200. Her hands were gripping the chair arms so hard her knuckles were white. But she kept talking. I don't care what you are. I don't care if you're real. You want to make me afraid. Fine, I'm afraid, I'm terrified, but that doesn't mean I quit. Doctor watched the neural readings in shock. Maya's prefrontal cortex was almost completely dark. The override was in full effect, but Maya wasn't just fighting. She was getting angry. You think fear makes me weak? Maya's voice was rising. Fear is what kept my ancestors alive when they were prey. Fear is what made them smart enough to survive. You feed on fear, then choke on it. In the simulation, the dread moved closer. Maya's body was shaking uncontrollably. Tears streamed down her face. Every biological indicator said she should be catatonic, but her hands released the chair arms and formed fists. If you're going to kill me, you're going to have to work for it, Maya said. Her voice was raw. I'm going to fight you every second. I'm going to make this hurt if I can. I'm going to make myself the worst meal you've ever had. The simulation showed Maya's virtual body picking up a rock. It was useless against an entity. Logic said it was pointless, but Maya didn't care about logic anymore. She charged. The simulation crashed. The AI couldn't process it. According to every from 6 extinct species, Maya should be unconscious. Instead, she was attacking an entity that barely existed in physical space. The program didn't have responses for this. It simply broke. Doctor ended the session immediately. Maya pulled off the helmet and immediately vomited into the basin they'd prepared. She was shaking so hard the chair rattled. Tears and sweat covered her face. She looked like she'd been in a real fight. "I'm sorry," Doctor said, moving to Maya's side. "I'm so sorry, that should never have crashed. Are you all right?" Maya took several deep breaths. When she finally spoke, her voice was hoarse. "I knew it wasn't real. My logical brain knew. But something in me didn't care. Real or not real, nothing gets to make me feel that way. Nothing gets to tell me to stop." His voice came through the speaker, bubbling with confusion. "But you were terrified. We could see it in every reading. You experienced more fear in 2 minutes than most beings feel in their entire lives." "I know." Maya wiped her face with a towel. "I was more scared than I've ever been, but being scared doesn't mean giving up. It just means you're afraid while you fight." Doctor helped Maya out of the chair. The human was still shaking but steady on her feet. "Maya, you experienced something that broke 6 entire civilizations. You should have shut down. Your brain should have chosen unconsciousness over that level of terror. Why didn't you?" Maya looked at her with red-rimmed eyes. "Because shutting down is still losing. I don't care if fighting is stupid. I don't care if it's illogical. Something in me, it just refuses. It refuses to let the universe tell me what to do. It refuses to accept that I'm beaten." In the observation booth, Shard's crystalline body was glowing with agitation. She attacked it. She attacked an entity that exists partially outside space-time, with a rock. That's not survival instinct. That's not even madness. That's something else entirely. Quill was staring at the neural readings, his gray skin even paler than before. "I need to update the probability models. I need to completely rebuild our understanding of human psychology. This changes everything." Doctor sat with Maya for an hour, making sure she was stable. They talked about the experience, about the feelings, about the rage that had overtaken fear. When Maya finally left, escorted by medical staff, Doctor returned to the observation booth. Her research team was still there, all staring at the frozen screens, showing Maya's neural activity at the moment of attack. "I understand now," Doctor said softly. "The override isn't about survival. It's not even about fear or courage. It's about refusal. Some part of the human brain, something ancient and primal, interprets threats as commands, and it refuses to obey." "Commands?" asked. The dread was telling Maya to shut down, to accept death peacefully. Every other species heard that command and obeyed because it was logical. But humans don't care about logic when they're threatened. They hear the command to submit and their response is rage. Pure, illogical, self-destructive rage. Quill brought up a new set of calculations. "I've been running worst-case scenarios, war scenarios. Doctor, if humanity ever becomes hostile, the numbers are disturbing. We have better technology. We have superior strategy. We have overwhelming advantages. The consortium would win." "But," Doctor prompted. But humans wouldn't stop. Even after defeat was mathematically certain, even after their worlds were burning, even after extinction was guaranteed, they wouldn't surrender. They would fight until there was nothing left to fight with. And then they'd find something else to fight with. The models say they would rather go extinct than accept defeat. The room was silent. Doctor walked to the observation window and looked down at Earth. From space, it looked so peaceful. Blue oceans, white clouds, green continents. 7 billion humans lived on that world. 7 billion beings who couldn't logically accept death, who would rather die fighting than live surrendering. "We need to send our report to the consortium immediately," Doctor said. "Maximum classification. The Council needs to understand what we've discovered." She spent the next 6 hours writing the report. She included all the data, all the neural scans, all the recordings of humans surviving impossible scenarios. But the conclusion was simple. Humans were dangerous not because they were strong or smart or advanced. They were dangerous because something in their brain refused to accept the universe's judgment. Other species knew when to quit. Humans didn't, couldn't, wouldn't. When Doctor transmitted the report, she added a personal note to the Consortium Council. Humanity must be approached with extreme caution. They are not aggressive by nature. They can be reasoned with, allied with, even befriended. But if they are ever pushed into a corner, if they ever face extinction, they will not go quietly. They will not accept the inevitable. They will fight with everything they have, and when that's gone, they'll fight with things that shouldn't work but somehow do. Because deep in their primitive brains, in the oldest parts of their minds, humans have one unbreakable rule. The universe doesn't get to tell them when to stop. The response from the consortium came within hours, faster than Doctor had ever seen them move. The message was brief and marked with the highest warning classification. All research on human survival responses is hereby suspended. No further testing of human psychological limits is authorized. Recommendation: treat humanity as a potential existential threat, not because of their current capabilities, but because of what they become when they refuse to lose. Extreme caution, advised in all future human encounters. Doctor read the message 3 times. Then she looked back at Earth. She thought about Maya, charging at an impossible threat with nothing but a rock and rage. She thought about breaking her own bones to survive. She thought about James, running through maintenance tunnels because his logic had turned off and only stubbornness remained. A species that couldn't accept death. A species that fought impossible battles as a matter of instinct. A species whose first response to cosmic horror was anger. Quill appeared beside her at the window. Did we make a mistake, studying them like this? No, Doctor said. Her skin was the deep blue of sadness. We needed to know. The consortium needed to understand, but now that we know, she trailed off. Now that we know what? Now that we know humans will never stop, we have to make sure we never give them a reason to start. Because once they do, once that override kicks in and logic dies. Doctor's skin flashed through a dozen colors before settling on red. Once it starts, I don't think anything in the universe could make them stop. Far below, on the blue and green planet, 7 billion humans went about their lives. They had no idea that somewhere above them, in a research station that existed in 5 dimensions at once, an alien scientist had just declared them the most dangerous species in known space. Not because of what they could do, but because of what they refused to accept. Death had always been the ultimate authority, the final word, the inevitable end. Every species in the consortium understood this. Every species except one. Humans looked at death and said no, and meant it, and kept meaning it even when meaning it was insane. That was what made them unstoppable. That was what made them terrifying. That was what made them human.